Hello there, everybody. In this week's episode of Our Mind on Music, I'm speaking with Megan J. Highfill, who is the Executive Director of AMI, A-M-I-S, the Association for Music in International Schools. I've been fortunate enough to meet Megan at 3 different AMI festivals, last year in Jeju, Korea, early this year in Beijing in February, and just recently Megan and I met up again in Shanghai for the Mixed Choir Festival that happened at Shanghai American School in Pudong. I've been hoping to chat with Megan here on Our Mind on Music for some time, but because of her incredible schedule, which you will learn a little bit more about in a moment, it's been difficult for us to find a time that we were actually able to speak. So, I don't want to delay. Here is Megan J. Highfill, Executive Director of the Association of Music in International Schools. I hope you enjoy.
Hi.
There you are. Hey, how you doing?
Good, how are you?
Good, thanks. I'll just say AMI, A-M-I-S, is the Association for Music in International Schools. For those of you who are watching right now, Megan Highfill, who I'm speaking with right now, is the Executive Director of AMI.
That's correct.
I saw your post on Facebook. I gotta read it. I kind of like my jaw dropped. It said 34 countries.
Oh yeah, so I had 5 weeks, 4 countries, 3 continents,
4
11
festivals.
flights. Yeah, 4 festivals.
Okay, let's start there. So
Okay.
I'm gonna read it so that I quote it correct. 34 days, 4 countries, 3 continents, 4 festivals, 6 incredible ensembles, countless memories with friends. How? How do you do this?
Yeah.
Like, I see you at these festivals. I've been lucky enough now to go to 3 of these festivals in the last 2 academic years. And you always look like this. You're smiling and you look like, you know, I think you're loving it, but how do you keep up?
Honestly, I devote a lot of time when I'm not on festival to staying in shape. So when I'm not traveling, I am very, very conscious about everything I eat. I make sure I get really solid nutrition. I cook. I don't ever eat out when I'm not traveling because when I'm traveling, that's all I do. So I really try to focus on my own cooking when I'm home. And then I stay in shape. I exercise. I practice mindfulness and yoga every day. I try to keep a pretty well-rounded workout routine and just try to keep everything kind of in order so that I'm prepared to go on that many flights. And it's not just about keeping the body in shape and staying healthy. It definitely is about the mindset as well. And I'm just really, really cognizant of it. And I do have an app that I'm using less and less, but it's called Time Shifter, and it helps you adapt to time zone shifts.
Ooh.
So it can be really helpful because you put in all your flights and then it kind of creates a plan for your days before and your days after, when you should go to bed, when you should drink coffee, when you should seek light. But I really find that the best thing I can do is try to get up, get a little bit of exercise, and then just go to work. And then once I get in that routine, then the jet lag doesn't really affect me.
That's cool because I don't travel nearly as much as you do, but
Yeah.
that's always a thing for those of us who do travel as part of our work, as part of our lifestyle. So that's interesting. I did hear you talking about yoga.
Yeah, for sure. I think that I've been practicing for about 7 years. Seriously, daily practice for about 7 years, and then otherwise for many years before that. But it really transformed kind of how I react in situations. So not only is it the physical body awareness and being really cognizant of what my body needs at certain times, I'll walk in and go, okay, I can really feel that even though I want a piece of pizza right now, I really would benefit from this other choice.
Mhm.
And so it's really helped with that. It's helped me with awareness, just sitting on a plane, kind of awareness of my body and what it needs. But I think in leadership and in teaching before, when I was teaching, it really helped with my kind of emotional reaction time because I tend to be a very kind of emotional, dramatic person. I wear my emotions on the outside. They come through my body. I'm one of those people that get sick when I'm stressed.
Mhm.
And and so learning more about the practice of yoga and being present and being able to pause and really think before I respond. And also my body not responding so quickly has been a huge shift for me. And instead of my heart starting to beat really fast and I start to kind of get that adrenaline dose when there's conflict or there's issues or there's an emergency, I'm able to stop. And even my body is calmer than it was 7 years ago before I started the practice.
That makes a lot of sense to me because, for me it's the same. People say, just don't stress over the small stuff, right? But I can think that, but I can't tell my body for my lower back to not hurt. If we could
Exactly.
do that, that'd be awesome. But what you're talking about is really slowing down reaction time so that you can have the time to think about how you react to things.
For sure. And I think when we're teaching, part of what makes us strong as teachers is being empaths and being compassionate with our students. So I enjoy that yoga does not take that away from me, that I can still feel things really deeply, but it allows me to be more considerate and intentional with my feelings, not just making them go away, which is what I felt like the advice I was getting about that, well, just don't stress or don't let it affect you, don't let it get to you so much.
Right.
But that's who I am. I mean, that's one reason I'm good at my job is because I let things get to me and I
Mhm.
feel them and I have compassion toward other people and I strive to have compassion toward everyone. And by allowing myself to feel that way, but just being able to think about it differently, I think that's where yoga gave me kind of an out that kind of more traditional therapeutic means weren't necessarily providing.
Interesting. Did that start? I don't know the timeline, but did that start when you were working in Nepal?
I started practicing yoga in Panama more seriously. I had been practicing it on and off. My mom is a yoga practitioner and has been for 15, 20 years. And she got into it we started together, but she just got into it way more than me. So I would kind of do it and then not do it. And I think the Western image of yoga was really imprinted in my mind of kind of these really thin young women who uh, I just didn't fit in the mold that I felt like yoga was. I didn't feel like yoga was made for me. And then when I got out of the country and I was in Panama and I was practicing with someone with a little bit different experience, I realized that that's not what it's about at all. And then certainly living in Nepal where it's all about the spiritual connection, so it was even less about the physical practice, and I learned so much more about the ancient history and philosophy about yoga that shifted that shifted me even more in my practice.
Very interesting. I mean, I think it's super interesting because here we are. This is basically a talk about Ami, and we
Yeah.
have really talked. In a way, we have actually. Like, why
Yeah,
is Ami running the way that it is right now? These are all connected things, right?
for
Um,
sure.
yeah. So, how did you actually become involved with Ami? This is your second, this is like still,
This is my first official year in the role.
right.
Yes.
And how, I guess part of it is how did that come about? Like how did you get involved with Ami and how did you end up where you are right now?
So back in, I think we figured out that it was 2017. You know how pre-pandemic all of the years are a blur. Back in 2017, I was working at the International School of Panama, and I was teaching secondary choir, orchestra. I had started a strings program there, a little bit of co-teaching of band and DP music. And I had spent most of my career in the elementary middle classroom in music and drama, so it was quite a change for me. And one of the elementary teachers was very involved in AMI in her last school. And so she went to the Music Educators Conference in Dubai and she came back and she said, okay, well, I volunteered us to host in 2 years. And
Okay.
I was going, okay. And I knew nothing about it except for the way that she explained it, which is how I still explain it to a lot of people is it's similar to the US state model except for it's continental. So instead of having state choir, you have European choir. And then it's much, much bigger than that as you start to explain it to people. But that's kind of a good baseline for people to understand what we do. So I took my kids, my middle school, I had six middle schoolers that I took to Chile to the first Latin American middle school choir. It was a mixed choir. It was conducted by Darlene Elkins. And I just saw everything that I experienced when I was growing up in the state orchestra system, but so much more because of the multicultural experience, because of the diversity, and because of the focus on ensemble and collaboration and not on competition, which is what I felt like the state model still has a focus on competition. I just saw my kids go from singing in this little middle school after school choir to this giant ensemble, and it changed them. I mean, they came away with friends, they came away with experiences, they came away more mature, more confident. And I was super excited then to host the next year. So the next year we hosted, oh, and probably a story I like to tell is I came back from that festival and my teaching partner, who had also done AMI when he was in Europe, said, what did you think of it? What did you think of Keith? And I said, oh, it's great. He was great. I want that job. I said that. I said
Wow.
that to him. I said, I want that job because it just felt like it was the perfect position for someone who loves organizing and administrative tasks, but also loves music and education. And you saw that from him. He was such a great leader because he really was there because he loved it. And that was really evident to me. So then the next year, we hosted the first band, the middle school band, and then the second year of the choir. And then from there, it was the pandemic. So I prepared my kids for the next year, and they didn't get to go.
Yeah.
And I really just stayed involved online. I offered a summer workshop. They were offering a summer series, and I was really passionate about inquiry in the ensemble classroom. So I did a workshop for them. I got to know Nyssa Brown through that workshop because she invited me to be a part of one of her sessions and the online music educators conference. And then through my move to Nepal, I just kind of stayed in communication and tried to get involved whenever I could. I really leaned on me when we were trying to come back to school and teachers were trying to sing and play instruments in their classroom. Ami had compiled a lot of the research around that, and I was able to really utilize that to convince my administration, that it was going to be really beneficial for the kids to start singing again. And these are the stipulations that we could use to make that happen.
Right.
And then it was again post-pandemic, they couldn't find a host for the Asian middle school choir. The East Asia had not really opened back up.
Mhm.
They were still pretty locked down, And so I emailed Keith and I said, Kathmandu is not the easiest place to get to, and we're a tiny, tiny little school, but we can do it. If you still need a host, we can do it. And I was teaching elementary at that point, but we hosted the first post-pandemic choir in Asia in Kathmandu, which
Wow.
was a new school and a new place for Ami. So that was really exciting. And then actually before we even hosted, they announced Keith's job.
Hmm.
And the announcement came out in the fall, in the morning. I believe it was 2022. And I I saw it, and within the day, two other people had forwarded it to me and said,
Wow.
"This, you need to apply for this." And I was like, "There's no way. Most people have been involved in this organization for 30 plus years. I've been here 5 minutes." And and I thought, okay, well, I was getting my principal license. I was wanted to go into leadership, but I was so hesitant to leave the classroom and to leave music at the same time. That did not appeal to me.
Mhm.
And I thought, well, maybe this is a good first step. Even just applying for this, I can get some experience and it'll hopefully open up some other opportunities for me. And I never really thought that I would get it because it felt like a competitive process. The interview process was 7 months long, and it had several interview rounds. It had a written round. It was very thoughtful and very careful. Jay Longren did an incredible job, and then I got it, and it's only comparable to the day I got into Oberlin, the feeling of hearing that I got that job. I mean, it changed my whole life.
Wow. It's amazing. How
Yeah.
long before we met in Jeju last year had you known that you were going to be in that position?
About a year.
Oh,
Yeah,
you
so
already
it
did.
was,
Okay.
yeah, about a year. It was a year and a half, just over a year and a half transition process.
Oh, okay.
Uh, it was so smart that
Yeah.
they did that because by the time July of 2024 rolled around, it was just another day. There was no big turnover. It just felt like we just eased into the new leadership, and it was so thoughtful. The whole thing was thoughtful. And that's one thing I love about this organization is they don't just grow to grow. They don't just get money and donors and sponsors like a lot of organizations do. Everything is a thoughtful decision and everything ties back to the mission.
It's amazing to me because I mean I've doing a little research to chat with you today about Ami. I learned some things that I didn't know. I've
Hmm.
known about Ami for quite some time, and it was only last year that I went to my first festival. But doing research, 1975 is when
Hmm.
it's Georgia and Richard Bassett.
Yep. Yes.
They founded this not as an organization at that point. It was
Right.
kind of they had a
It was just a
festival
festival.
in London.
Hmm.
And I thought, wow, like what a vision for them to start, basically. What I found amazing, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, but Ami wasn't made an organization until 1996.
That's when the process started, but I feel like the official it finally was established in 99. But it was a long process because they had to be registered. We have to be registered with the Charities Commission and also with Companies House in the UK. And so you have to essentially establish yourself as a business. And we had to go the extra step of establishing ourselves as a charity. And it took a long time to get all of that in line.
So for over 20 years, operating just as festivals by people
Mhm.
just saying, all right, I'll put my hand up, I'll do it. I'll host.
Yes.
Which I mean, I've seen, like I said, three festivals now, and I haven't hosted, but I can see what those people have done before we even got there and what they're doing every day that we're there. Like for 20 years, that was happening. Just people thinking this is a great thing. We're not letting this drop.
Yes, and Dick and Georgia were not benefiting financially at all. So they were doing this on top of their jobs at the American School of London, just as a volunteer, which set the tone for the rest. We still depend predominantly on volunteers for
Yeah.
our organization to function, and they really set the tone for that.
I was thinking about that when you were talking about that just the other day. We were in Shanghai for the choir festival, the first ever elementary school.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
50-year anniversary, first ever elementary school choir, and I felt really lucky to be there. So that was cool. You were talking about the volunteer aspect of this because at the end of each concert, there is the opportunity for attendees to donate money,
Mhm.
but that's not for you to have, to have your income or whatever the things might be. It's to enable students who couldn't afford to attend the festival. It's to
Mhm.
sponsor those students to attend. And that
Yes, we've had, and I wish I knew how long they have had the financial aid fund, but it's been for a very long time, certainly since before the organization became official. There's kind of a misconception that international school students are all wealthy, and it's just not true. We have so many students that are at our schools because of the company their parents work for, or because their parents work for the school itself.
Mhm.
We have schools in Europe, especially that double as public schools. They're international schools, but they're part of the public school system because
Yeah.
of how schools in Europe must be set up to function. And going to a European high school choir or Asian middle school band is more expensive than attending Missouri State Orchestra. When you're talking about the kind of the comparison to that experience, we're asking students to fly across the world, stay in hotels. We try to keep our registration fees as low as possible, but we all obviously have to function and make sure that we have enough money to function as an organization. And many students can't afford that experience. And so we really value never turning anyone away. If they get into the ensemble or they're selected for the ensemble and they need some extra help, we have a means to give them that extra help. And that fund is completely funded based on audience donations. And we don't ask for any other money during our concert. All the money we collect goes to that.
There are, I believe, 93 member schools. Is that correct?
100, the last I looked, I think we're up to 130.
Holy cow. So
Yeah.
my research is out of date.
Yes. To be fair, it may not be up to date. We're trying to work on a system to keep the number more up to date on the website.
Like this school that I'm at, just by way of example, last year we had one student who went to the festival. I live in China, and the festival was in Korea. Now, the
Right.
school could have easily said, we're not sending a teacher. The days that you won't be
Mhm.
here, we'll have to get cover for you, and the costs of you going, et cetera, et cetera. And they didn't say that because they understand how important this is. And post COVID, post pandemic, we're also looking at rebuilding the numbers of students who are doing that, who are auditioning,
Yes.
and all of the understanding that has to go along with people doing this.
Right.
So I was really happy that the school said, okay, we have a student who can go. He passed the audition and he's going. And I was like, wow, okay. So there's a lot that goes into it, and I'm thinking it's really exceptionally well run, I think. You know, the organization of it, the experience for the students, the experience for the teachers that go along. You know, it's just like I feel like it's some of the best PD that I've done, you know, in years. It's really such a special thing to be happening. And when you say that it's happening based on people that just understand what I said and are
Mhm.
volunteering to do it, you know, I love that culture of AMI, actually.
People do it because they're passionate about it, and many of us have had an experience somewhere in our lives where we were impacted by a collaborative ensemble. So I think people understand how important it is, and that's why when schools send music teachers, we love having non-music chaperones. We love having parent chaperones. We really love having administrator chaperones because then they learn what the organization is about. But in terms of benefiting from the experience, what music teachers get out of it and then can also put back into it is incomparable to anyone else. And we are so grateful, and whatever we can do to make sure that music teachers feel supported and feel like they're getting great professional development. So that's something else that's really missing in the international world for music educators is great professional development. And we have it everywhere at all of our festivals. We have it at our conference, and we want music educators to feel like they're part of a real international music community.
Yeah, I mean, we were lucky enough in the choir festival for one of our administrators to go along with us. When another administrator comes who is definitely supportive of it, but when she sees it, she sees what you said about those students and what they get from it. You know, those
Yes.
grade 4 and 5 students who went there, I love, we get there and they're kids. They're running and they're
I
silly,
know.
they're goofy. And then when we go up there, when they're up on the stage in the rehearsals, in the concert, and they just boom, laser focused and they're looking
Yeah.
at the director or the conductor, and it's like, what just happened? And that can't be the same kid that I just told to stop running in the hallway and poking his friend in the back. Because now he's standing
For
up there,
sure.
perfect posture, laser focused, and I'm like, you can only really appreciate that when you see it. You know, we can talk
Exactly.
about it, but to see it is the moment where you go, okay, all right, I get it. You know? What would you say makes Ami unique, like really special?
I think what makes us unique is that we're community driven. So when we come to these festivals, when we hit the ground, we are all one family. And I know that people kind of overuse the word family when they talk about organizations or schools or even companies, but that really is that small charity mentality that we have tried to maintain is that when we hit the ground, it's not my kids and your kids or those kids. It's they are all of our students right away. And we live that through the way that we supervise them, through the way that we support them. When teachers walk other students to the nurse, when teachers give a little reminder to some students who maybe need a reminder during sectionals, during activities, we support everyone and we treat everyone with equity and respect. So I think that is different in that and I explain this a lot to athletic directors, is it's not my team and your team. We
Mhm.
don't see that division.
Yeah,
We have one moment in the concert where we get to recognize the schools and the representatives of the schools, and that's intentional. We intentionally do not do that any other time.
yeah.
I think the other thing that makes us unique is that though we view performance as an educational element, it is not the educational element. So education and pedagogy are at the root of what we do. And I will say that the 3 days we spend prior to the performance are arguably more important than whatever happens on stage on Saturday night. And that is very different from other festival models where it's definitely let's get together, let's rehearse, and then we perform.
Right.
And we have to be really cognizant of that when we choose our conductors, that this is an educational model, not a performance model.
Yeah.
So, building relationships, building connections, building educational experiences, those are not skills that every kind of big name conductor has. And we have realized that the hard way sometimes is that, oh, okay, maybe this person's not a great fit for us because these kids sound great, the
Mhm.
performance is great, but did they have 3 days of a great experience? Because that's the most important thing
I
to
quoted you.
me and
I
to the
quoted you.
organization.
Yeah, I spoke with Rob Ross, who is with Juilliard in Tianjin
Uh-huh.
here in China. Yeah, I quoted you because he was saying exactly the same things you're saying. It's not about just playing the notes. You're trying to show what you're feeling and what you're thinking. And Megan Highfill, I was at an AMI festival, and she said, that's the cake. We've had the experience. That's the cake, the whole cake. And then
Mm.
the concert and people enjoying it, that's like the icing on top of the cake, you know? And if we can help our students to understand that, then if they decide at some point, I'm not going to make this a profession, I'm going to become an architect, but they love to go home and play guitar, or they love to go home and just experience music. All of those things are wins because we're making people happy in their lives. And then whatever they do with that is, what fits for their situation, for their life.
I just think that arts advocacy is something that I and you and many people like us need to continue to do to their communities. And in that case, then I think we have a chance. I think we have a chance at a world that is more empathetic, that is more understanding, that is more creative, and hopefully just a world that can sustain for future generations.
I feel really lucky that I've been able to attend some of these festivals, and I really hope I can continue to do that in the future. One of the things I love to ask before I end a conversation with people
Yeah.
is there a question that you wish I had asked that I didn't ask?
Ooh, that's tough. There's so there's so many layers to this. I don't think there's a question that I necessarily wish you asked. I think I want to reiterate that in today's world, so much of the turmoil that so many are experiencing, I think focusing on community and collaboration and love becomes more and more difficult. I have conversations every day with administrators about child safeguarding and liability and safety and security. And those things are so important. But it's very easy for those conversations to become about isolationism
Mm,
and to become about building walls around our communities because we can only control what we can control.
right.
And being collaborative and communal and international and global is a risk. It's always been a risk, and that risk has not changed. It's just that we're more and more aware of it. So if there's one thing that I really hope AMI can continue to strengthen, it's that idea that it's a risk worth taking,
Mhm.
that being a community and being collaborative and recognizing that we're all in this together and that we should care for one another simply because we are all human and we should embrace each other's differences and love each other's differences and it's a risk worth taking and it's an ideal worth upholding. And I know it sounds super philosophical, but it's something I think about a lot because I feel it. I feel the pull to become something different,
Right.
and I will fight for this. And so will the members of the board. And I think all the teachers in this organization is we will fight for this ideal because it's for 50 years it has built incredible humans into incredible adults, and we will continue that mission and resist the urge to go in any other direction.
Don't forget to like and subscribe. Good night.